Shri Gurubhyo Namaha children. We welcome you to our online teaching academy Ekalaiva. Children, today we are going to discuss about rent under distribution analysis. Okay, now meaning of rent. Rent is the price or reward given for the use of land or house or a machine to the owner. So it is a payment given by the consumer, the person who is going to utilize the land, or for example you can take house or a machine. So it is the payment or reward given for the use of land or house or a machine to the owner of that product. Now, but in economics, rent is also called as economic rent. It is defined as the part of payment made by a tenant, the person who is going to use the land or house, to the landlord, the owners of that land or house, for the use of land only. So this is the definition for rent in economics. Now we are going to discuss about the Ricardian theory of rent. So the classical theory of rent, it is called as Ricardian theory of rent. David Ricardo explained this theory. So now Ricardian theory of rent assumes the following. So before that, rent is that portion of the produce of the earth which is paid to the landlord for the use of the original and indestructible powers of the soil. So it is the portion of the payment which the person who is going to utilize the land is going to pay for the landlord for the original and indestructible powers, means imperishable powers of the soil. So this is the definition given by David Ricardo. Now these are the assumptions. So land differs in fertility. So the fertility of the soil may differ, and law of diminishing returns operates in agriculture. Here the law of diminishing returns states that if one input in the production of a commodity is increased while all other inputs are fixed, a point will eventually be reached at which additions of the input yield. So according to the input, the farmer will get the output. Next one, rent depends upon fertility and where the land is located. Fertility of the soil and the location of the land. Next one, it assumes perfect competition. In our previous class, we discussed about the features of perfect competition, right? And then it is based on the assumption of long period. Existence of marginal land or no rent land, additional land or no rent land. Land has certain original and imperishable powers and it is used for cultivation only. And the last assumption is most fertile lands are cultivated. Most fertile lands will be given importance at first. So these are all the assumptions of Ricardian theory. In this tabular column, you can see different grades of land, production in bags and surplus, that is rent in bags. So first we are going to assume that some people go to a newly discovered island and settle down there. So there they can find three grades of land, namely A grade land, B grade land and C grade land. So first one, A being most fertile, B less fertile and C the least fertile. So they are dividing the land into three categories as most fertile, less fertile and least fertile. So they will first cultivate all the most fertile land, that is A grade land available. Since the land is idle, there is no need to pay rent as long as such best lands are freely available. So given a certain amount of labor and capital, the yield per acre on A grade land is 40 bags of paddy here. Suppose another group of people goes and settles down in the same island after some time. Hence the demand for agriculture produce will increase. So the most fertile lands, that is A grade alone, cannot produce all the food grains that are needed, isn't it? So the less fertile grade lands, that is B grade, will have to be brought under cultivation in order to meet the demands. So for the same amount of labor and capital employed in the A grade land, the yield per acre on B grade land is 30 bags of paddy. So the surplus of 10 bags, that is 40 minus 30 per acre, appears on A grade land. So this is economic rent of A grade land. Suppose yet another group of people goes and settles down in the same island, so that the least fertile land, that is C grade land, will have to be brought under cultivation for the same amount of labor and capital. Now the yield per acre on C grade land is 20 here. So 20 bags of paddy they can cultivate. So this surplus of A grade land is now raised to 20 bags. So when we compare A grade land and C grade land, the difference is 20 bags, and it is the economic rent of A grade land. So the surplus of B grade land is now 10. So because 30 minus, that is B grade land minus C grade land, that is 10 bags of paddy. So this is the economic rent of B grade land. Now if we take C grade land, cost of production is just equal to the price of its produce, and therefore it does not yield any rent. So 20 minus 20, 0. Hence C grade land is called as no rent land or marginal land. So therefore no rent land or marginal land is the land in which cost of production is just equal to the price of its product. So the land which yields rent is called intra-marginal land. That is A and B grade lands are called intra-marginal land. Therefore rent indicates the advantage of the superior land over the marginal land. Now diagrammatic explanation. In this diagram, x-axis represents the different grades, various grades of land, and y-axis represents the yield per acre in bags. Here you can see OA, AB and BC or the A grade land, B grade land and C grade land. So the application of equal amount of labor and capital on each of them gives a yield represented by the rectangles. Here A grade land is represented in red color, B grade is represented in blue color, and C grade is represented in C grade. So now the C grade land is the no rent land. Here you can see green color rectangle, isn't it? A and B grade lands are intra-marginal lands. Intra-marginal means the lands which is rent. So the economic rent yielded by A and B grade lands is equal to the shaded area. So you can see the shaded area. This is the yield of B grade land and this is the yield of A grade land. Okay, now we are going to discuss about the criticism. So the limitations of this Ricardian theory of rent is, so the order of cultivation, that is A, B and C, from that is most fertile to least fertile, it is wrong. Next, it assumes that rent does not enter into price, but in reality, rent enters into price. Now we are going to discuss about quasi-rent. Marshall introduced the concept of quasi-rent. So factors other than land. For example, you can take plant, machinery, or fixed in supply during short run. So they earn surplus income when demand rises. It is purely temporary. So demand for machines, demand for the plants are all temporary demand as it disappears in long run due to increase in supply. So we discussed how demand and supply plays a very important role in the market. So the quasi rent is a surplus that a producer receives in the short period. You have to underline this, in the short period over variable cost from the sale of output. Now distinction between rent and quasi-rent. Here rent, it accrues to land, but quasi-rent, it is for man-made appliances. Here the supply of land is fixed forever, but here the supply of man-made appliances is fixed only for a short period. Next, here rent enters into price. Here quasi-rent, it does not enter into price. Here quasi-rent is the income derived from machines and other appliances made by man. So this is the definition given by Alfred Marshall. Now the modern theory of rent, demand and supply theory of rent. So the classical economists, if you take classical economists, they thought that land as a factor of production was different from other factors which involve in the production. But modern economists, they thought that all the factors of production are same and there is no basic difference between them. So a special theory of was rent developed by Ricardo is not necessary. So economists like Joan Robinson and Boulding, they have contributed their ideas for the determination of rent, which is known as modern theory of rent. So the essence of the conception of rent is the conception of surplus, which is earned by a particular part of a factor which involves in the production over and above the minimum earnings which makes it to do work. So this is the definition of Joan Robinson. Now rent is the difference between the actual earning, what the factor actually earns in the production, and its transfer earning. So rent equal to actual earning minus transfer earning. The minimum payment that has to be made to a particular factor of production, maybe any one of the factors which involve in production, to maintain in its present use, it is known as transfer earnings. Okay children, today we discussed about rent and also about Ricardian theory of rent. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you children.